My name is Cassie Nice and I'm Head of Patient Experience and Engagement at West Suffolk Foundation Trust. I'm here this morning to demonstrate how this helpline model has helped to support caregivers, patients and staff alike. We've truly seen the impact this has had on the way our NHS organisation operates, and we would love to share this with other trusts and hopefully see the benefits for patients across the whole of the NHS, not just us. This helpline, which was set up just 2 weeks into the first UK lockdown in April 2020, which is dedicated to helping relatives who are able to contact us 7 days a week. What makes it unique is that it was staffed by clinicians working from home who are able to provide comprehensive clinical updates on loved ones in hospital using live digital patient record systems and obviously the huge expertise and experience that our clinical team have. The beginning of the first lockdown restrictions came around in March 2020, and we anticipated as a patient experience team there was going to be a huge issue with communication from relatives to ward and with patients. We were determined to help in some way, and through some investigation, a pool of shielding clinical staff were brought together, and this is when the helpline was created. Through our application, we spoke a lot about the quality strengths that we feel this helpline has brought. We have chosen to build on 3 key areas, all of which have been vital components in influencing the experience of care. Sarah, who works on our helpline team, unfortunately couldn't join today due to clinical pressures, so I'll just be covering her slide. So one of the things that we know was really important to the team and the success of the helpline was the team culture. Now, casting our minds back to the beginning of the pandemic and all of the uncertainty that came with that, obviously we had many staff members that were themselves clinically vulnerable and required to shield. So that meant not being able to do what they work towards. You know, you don't enter the care field and not want to help and support, particularly in times of a pandemic. So we had lots of staff that were at home frustrated, worried and desperate to help in some way. So when the helpline opportunity to work from home came around, they absolutely embraced it wholeheartedly. The other element of this is the fact that obviously these were primarily clinical staff that were not used to and never thought they would have to work from home or work remotely on a computer, on a telephone. That's not kind of their area of experience. So what we did was we tried to really establish a positive and supportive team culture right from the outset. We had daily Teams meetings, which still exist now. We had a WhatsApp group for the team where they were able to communicate throughout the day. A team lead of the day who would be nominated to be able to escalate to if there were any issues. And we quickly established a really positive team culture. And as we all know, team culture and a happy team, happy staff means happy patients, service users and relatives in this case. So the other element of this is that the team had shared values, they had compassion for one another, and they had a huge amount of compassion for these relatives and caregivers who were in an unusual situation of being at home whilst their loved ones were in hospital and they weren't able to access them. So this was a real establishment of two-way, joined up communication from hospital to caregiver and vice versa. So it was a real opportunity to fully involve these people with the care, and not just in COVID. This was something that was unique in that the team have time to spend speaking to these relatives, supporting them, making sure that the ward are fully aware of that patient's needs. So going on to person-centred care, now in total we have dealt with over 36,000 relative updates since the beginning of COVID, and that includes a period of time where we actually paused the helpline when we just needed to kind of sort out staffing really. The helpline is now fully back in place and has been since the beginning of this year. Obviously, the benefit of this was that it released time to care on the wards. The ward staff were able to focus fully on patient care and communication, and we were able to support them with relatives and caregivers and making sure that they had everything they needed, and also in turn the patients did as well. At the peak, we were dealing with over 300 relative conversations per day. The service enabled enhanced communication with family carers beyond what would normally be possible. As I've mentioned, the team had time to provide support and also to adapt to the diverse needs of the callers. So making sure that conversations lasted for as long as was needed and adapting the communication styles to make sure that it met the need of the person calling. We have many repeat callers now that, you know, will phone up every day and have become well known to the service. Individualised care was obviously able to be amplified, so we were able to identify what patients' likes and dislikes were, which enabled the ward staff to promote positive outcomes, from preferred hydration to the use of hearing aids. So not only did we mitigate an increase in complaints, we actually saw a reduction in complaints for the year. We recently received our results of the CQC inpatient survey, and 94% of respondents were able to keep in touch with friends and family during restrictions, which meant that we were able to support that through the helpline and through our Keeping in Touch service. Some of the unexpected wins from the service is that we've been able to identify safeguarding concerns that wouldn't necessarily be obvious or available to ward staff or in the ward setting. That means we've been able to escalate many cases that needed to be looked into, and also to support vulnerable relatives in the community and identify family carers and make sure they had the support that they needed. So, building on the integration of the team within the trust and making a difference, we worked very closely with the ward staff and leadership teams throughout the whole process, and the service was wholly embraced by them. As we will all know, communication is a top category of complaint in the NHS and obviously a huge contributory factor to patient harm. So we were able to support that and make sure that the experience of care was better for all. We've continuously sought feedback about the service from service users and colleagues, and we've had so many amazing letters of thanks about the service and the support that it's given. So there is a future for the helpline, and I'd be very happy to talk through that with people if they're interested in hearing about that. We are so proud of the service and what it's been able to do, and we just really want to share it. So you know, there are wins from staff retention to fewer complaints, you know, that I would love to talk about in more detail at another time. But I would like to end with Tracy, who used the helpline frequently during her dad's inpatient stay, and then we'll move on to questions after. Thank you for your time.
Over the last 12 months, my father has been admitted to hospital on 8 or 9 occasions. The last 3 occasions to West Suffolk. I specifically asked through a choice of hospitals for him to come to West Suffolk due to the excellent clinical helpline that West Suffolk Hospital has in place. I cannot put a value on this service. The team who have answered the phone are knowledgeable, compassionate, helpful and supportive, and the list just goes on. I can also talk to them in the knowledge that I'm not distracting a member of the ward team from frontline care duties. The questions I've asked have been asked at a level which I can understand, and that I can also communicate to my mother and my father's care home, so everyone understands my father's condition. And it's given me the opportunity to update the clinical helpline team on things which may be important to assist in my father's care. Something such as why he may not be responding to communication in his given name, which has never been used all through his life, and due to his health condition, he would be unlikely to respond to. I also even had a WhatsApp call arranged for me, which was fantastic. I hope that post-COVID, this service is given the opportunity to continue to allow patients, relatives to have up-to-date, informative and knowledgeable updates on their loved ones, whilst allowing the ward teams to focus on the frontline role of caring for patients through to discharge. It's impossible to put a value on this service, but if you asked each and every one who has used it, I'm confident you would get the same positive response. Thank you seems inadequate to explain my appreciation of this service.